Here we are in part 4 of this grid system building series. If you haven't already checked out the first 3 parts, please take a look in case you're a bit lost to where we are. Just to sum up, we've taken a look at our HTML here and how to use that to slice up our document in different sections. And we looked at the CSS to see how that's structured in a way to allow us to create these different areas that are very easy to control just by assigning a certain column width to them, and they take up that amount of space. So what does that mean in the big picture? It means that our layouts can be a lot more complex and that we can build our pages and layouts much faster and have a structure that allows us to have these media queries that allow for responsive design. In this particular course, where we're going to look we're going to look at the more advanced styles.css here, which has been set up to give you navigation bars and a couple of other things. So let's double click that one, open it up. Now the first part is still the same as we saw in the previous video. So this is all set up for the grid system. What we've done though is added a few extra things. Okay, so here, in the previous example we saw that the tagline box disappeared in mobile view. So let's see that again. If I were to resize my window here, these are my media queries up here, right? I have one here, 160 to 480, 481 to 768, that's for tablets, and 768 until, large. That's fine. So I'm assuming on this size it's desktop, it looks okay. Then we hit tablet size, and what I've done here is I've just made the background here black just so you can see the indicator to know that you're in tablet mode. And keep an eye out on the tagline box over here. As you hit that mobile media query, boom, everything reflows. Containers become 100% wide, but the tagline box is nowhere to be found. It disappeared, and that's by design. The reason being because maybe on mobile we felt that having a tagline here breaks things up. It's not convenient, takes up too much space, doesn't serve a purpose. Any number of reasons that you decide as a designer that it shouldn't be there. What that means in your style sheet, though, is that if you go to the section with your media query, and we look at some of the things that are happening here, columns, width is 100%. I've assigned a red outline around these boxes so we can see them here. But what we've done is also specify tagline. Remember that ID that we put in there, tagline, display none, which means that when this media query is active on mobile devices, this tagline box should just not even show up. And we have a couple of other media query changes. For example, our navigation bar. Let's look at that. Right now we have a horizontal navigation, but once we get to the mobile media query, boom, it becomes a stacked vertical one. What that means is that we've possibly restyled this, text align center, float left, all that stuff. We've repurposed some of these styling elements to accommodate the mobile display. And the same thing happens further down. For example, for tablets, anything assigned tablet classes for size and dimensions, those dimensions stay the same. However, you can now repurpose and redefine how your navigation looks, how your elements look, what's hidden, what shows. And the same thing here in the desktop. And we're looking at a couple of other new things in here, which we'll talk about later on. So what this allows you to do is almost have 3 different style sheets all combined in one, and by assigning these media queries you can target, here's one, there's another, and here's the one for mobile. By having these media queries in there, it's almost like having 3 different style sheets that you can use to define what your website looks like depending on the situation. And it switches from one to the other, and it happens automatically and instantly based on the pixel values that you assign here as trigger points. Of course, it's a lot more work, but the payoff is really, really good. In the past, you would have to create separate websites, which is crazy. Here, at least, you just have to, play around with a couple of CSS elements, and you're in business. And if you want to keep it simple, you don't even have to go to this extent. You could just have things take place like this, where your columns become 100%, and that's the end of that. And that's basically how the grid system works. And then you would continue adding all these other attributes and values and building your pages as you see fit. You're going to probably start working with IDs a lot more. I'm sorry for that little brain freeze. So you're going to be working with IDs a lot more because you're assigning classes already to certain elements. So if you click there, sidebar, you can see the sidebar has a column before. If you want to change something about the styling here, you can't just go into column 4 and add a whole bunch of values there, because anything else with column 4 assigned to it is going to be affected. So you can target using IDs. You can say, okay, this is going to be the sidebar container. Create that entry in my styles.css. Thank you. And if I go to my CSS designer now, somewhere here, I should see that new ID that I've created, and I can apply different values to it. It already has a class of call4, so I don't want to go in and change the width and the height. Maybe the height, you might want to make that 600 pixels. And maybe you want to make the background color a light gray. There you go. So using the IDs allow you to do that kind of thing. What you don't want to do is say, oh, that's a column 4 class. No problem. I'll just go to my column 4 class and redefine that as background equals gray. Because what that's going to do is, if there's anything else with a column 4 class, it's going to get the gray treatment also. So you want to be careful with that. And really, that's about it. What we're going to do next is, using this style sheet, we're going to create a new HTML file from scratch with a little custom layout. And we'll see what the approach is there to keep things simple and moving very, very quickly. Tune in for that. We're almost done, and after this, you guys are going to be wizards.